Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Story Hour. Tonight is an exciting night for many reasons, but especially because this is the fourth anniversary of Story Hour. So raise a glass of whatever you would like, whether that's alcoholic or non, and cheers to Story Hour. I am your host, Sam Rebelein. Usually, Story Hour is co hosted by Laura Blackwell and Daniel Marcus, but this evening, I hope you can trust me to guide you through the weird, the shadows, the stars, the beautiful, and beyond. Daniel Marcus started Story Hour to help people stay connected by telling each other stories around this virtual campfire. We'd like to thank the SFWA for the Givers Fund grant, which helps us keep the virtual campfire burning. So, welcome back to those returning, and welcome to those joining us for the first time. As always, we have two writers reading their own work. Tonight's readers are Laura Blackwell and A.D Sui. If you're here on Zoom, feel free to chime in on the text chat if you'd like. If you're joining us over Facebook, please be nice to each other as we are not monitoring that chat as closely. And I think that's all the business that I have. So without further ado, A.D Sui is going to be our first reader tonight. A.D is a Ukrainian born, queer, and disabled science fiction writer. She is a failed academic, which I love, and retired fencer. Her writing has appeared in Dark Matter magazine, Augur, and others. Her debut novella, The Dragonfly Gambit, came out when? Just yesterday?
Just yesterday, yeah.
Wow. Congrats. Another reason to cheers tonight on Story Hour. uh, Dragonfly Gambit came out just yesterday. When not wrangling her two dogs, she's posting away as at the Sway Way on every social media platform. A.D Sway, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I am branding the hell out of this way. Um, I'm gonna put it on stickers and just give it out to strangers on the street. Hi, everyone. I'm gonna begin by reading For the Pollinators, and that's a flash I had published in the recent issue of Seize the Press, which is an amazing magazine. I really love them, and you should check them out. This story comes with the following content warnings. There is swearing, there is one F bomb, I believe, and there is some body horror. And the overall topic of the story is the experience of the unhoused. So keep that in mind. This is a story on the darker side. Shirtless and sunburned, a lone man climbs a hill. The bees buzz in his skull, relentless. Their drone drones out the raging freeway, curses from tired drivers, a distant siren. Angry red skin peels from his shoulders. Outgrown toenails peek through his torn sneakers. Sometimes he loses his footing, and the bees sting his eyes from the inside, and his vision goes black. Vengeful little creatures. But the man finds his footing and climbs on, his head a container for their rage. A year, two, a decade ago, he tried to carve them from himself, a ritual of desperation. Silence the insects, silence the voices screaming, get going, you lazy fuck. With a slab of plated glass, one edge muddy, one edge stained with a yellow film, he prayed with the yellow edge flush against his sweat-smelling neck to gods he had long forgotten, using names that were surely wrong. He prayed and he prayed until the lights died, and his prayers were nothing but mutters and whispers of empty threats. Still, the bees raged on, like a curse descending upon a deserving sinner. Halfway up the hill, the man remembers that once he was 8, and there was silence around him, and he slept with eyes closed in a bed that was soft enough. That wasn't a concrete bench erected with bars bisecting it in the middle. And in the mornings, the air smelled not of stale liquor, but of fresh coffee and fried eggs. He was a little prince waiting for his throne, a warrior before the call to battle, a magician in search of a knight to assist, unlimited potential from head to toe. He was boundless, edges not yet formed, kind, the way that children can be before they learn that cruelty gets them further. He would have made a worthy king, if only not for the bees, his mother would say. Such pity, her words echo through the decades, such pity that I've been damned with a cursed son. The honey cravings in the month before the birth, a telltale sign the curse had taken roots. I should have carved you from myself when I had the chance. She never said, but he knew. He knew the sentiment was there. Now he opens his mouth and screams into the sky so that his voice doesn't leave him like it had a year, two, a decade ago when the bees grew so loud he couldn't hear the world, the traffic, the voices behind the flashlight saying, "You can't sleep here, better get moving." But joke's on them because he couldn't have been sleeping, not with the cold, not with the snow at his feet and in his bones, and the bees, the damn bees in his head. His naked shoulder slams into a person, a tree, the wall of a building, all windows gone. The bees hate sleeping outside. When they sleep outside, they rage and they sting and they sting, sting, sting. They crave enclosure and walls and a ceiling you can't see the stars through. It was a year or two or a decade ago that he owned a ceiling and four walls and a small lot out back where he planted sunflowers because the bees urged him to, and they buzzed softly, satisfied as they watched the green stems break through the ground and reach for the sun. But then winter came, and the snow came, and cold came, and the bills and their white crisp envelopes never stopped coming. The bees raged and stung him until the bees were of no importance, and he stayed perfectly still in the corner of what was once a kitchen, and now was nothing but a prison of tiles, filthy and littered with jars of brown piss. And when he was yanked outside by a hand insisting it was helping, he wandered a while through the winter city, arguing with the bees, who suggested he take a plunge from the next bridge he walked across. And then spring came, and a stranger in some teal scrubs asked him how it all started, and the man could only say it started how it always does, with loud shouts and nothing but sleep for dinner. The stranger in the teal scrubs frowned. They always frown before they say that there is nothing to be done for him, before they hand him an offering of pills and say, "Take these every morning and night." But all they do is slow his legs and dry his already chapped lips. They do nothing for the bees. And so the man leaves, and the man climbs. Fences, hills, stories of boarded up houses. For as long as he climbs, the bees are pacified, and they only sting him occasionally, and only when he slows down. But once they stung him so bad he started running, screaming at the pain erupting behind his eyes. When the stinging subsided, a siren passed above him, and the flashing lights of a police car lit up the underpass. Sometimes the bees know something he doesn't, warn him of a danger coming before the danger arrives. Some days the man doesn't mind their presence so much, and the puzzle of his curse begins to reassemble itself. Now the buzzing ebbs and flows as the man climbs the hill by the freeway. Car engines fade into the distance, shouts from angry drivers, all white noise, all so easy to ignore. He has a walking stick to lean on and an old t-shirt wrapped around his waist. He washed it in the lake, dried it on a weeping willow as he watched goslings learn to swim. Past the hill crest, a field unfolds, littered with dandelions and white lavender. The city will spray these as soon as the yearly landscaping budget passes. It's good to reduce allergens, they all say. People who never go to the field. People who have never stretched out flat on grass, bare skin prickled by sharp ends. People who have never fallen asleep in the scorching July sun as the bees in their head drift off too. We can rest here, the bees say without words. We can all rest here together. Letting go is easy in the midday heat of a summer day. Eyes closed, lips parted, the man exhales, and the bees flow from his mouth. They hover over the dandelions, the lavender, little clumps of them, yellow and vibrating. They gorge themselves on sweet nectar until their fuzzy bellies are round, until their furry paws are heavy with pollen. And they take to the skies, free, buzzing, boundless. The man lets out on a field of weeds, skin red and peeling. He loses his breath and never finds it. So that's that one. I started out dark. Um, is it okay if I move to my next story? Okay, excellent. I'm just going to take a quick drink of water. So my next story is The Succubus and the Store Clerk, and it was published in Baffling issue 13. It's also on it was on the Locus recommended reading list. Um, and it comes with several content warnings. There's these discussions of death because it's an A.D Sui story, so there will always be discussions of death. Um, there is cancer diagnosis, and I think that's it for content warnings. And here we go. Hunger has many faces. It's the gnawing in the stomach, yes, but it's the trembling of a hand too. The acid on the tongue, the sharp inhale of oxygen to the lungs. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I ring through Margot's cigarettes like every other day while she taps away on the counter with freshly painted crimson nails. Every cell in my body hungers for her, and she doesn't notice it. Hot date? I ask her, and she rolls her eyes. Where are you taking them? Just to my place, Margot says, and slides some change over the counter. The quarters grind against the thick plastic covering the Lotto tickets. For dinner, we smile at her joke, but she doesn't know how jealous I am that they get to taste her lips before they die. The little lump inside me grows. It starts where the hunger does and spreads to every distant corner of me, chews on me, poisons me, until there's no more me left. Soon, very soon, I will give in to its appetites. On the good days, I can laugh at Margot's jokes and smoke cigarettes with her. On the bad days, I lean on the shop counter and pray for an end, empty my stomach in the plastic-lined bin. Those days, Margot brings me silks and fine perfumes in antique bottles to distract me, because the sweets she once brought will only make it worse. I don't ask how long she's had them. I don't tell her they're of little help. A convenience store is a pathetic place to die, I tell myself. Margot's lit window is a beacon at midnight. It overlooks a sprawling garden, bustling during the day, but now completely abandoned. The allure she carries with her every day pours past the open curtains. Margot's lithe silhouette moves against the ornate burgundy and gold wallpaper, one hand gliding along the zipper of her velvet dress before it pulls at her ankles. There's someone else there of predictable appearance. Margot has a type. I spy from behind a rose bush as she pulls him close by the tie. I hope you enjoyed yourself, I say, narrating the play unfolding before me. I say his part out loud too. I was hoping we were only getting started. Before long, Margot kisses him. At first, he's into it, hands running up Margot's ass. As the seconds trickle by, he realizes the danger he's in and starts to fight. But Margot's stronger, and Margot's hungry. It takes no effort at all for her to pin the squirming specimen to the wall and drain him dry. With every drop, she glows more vibrant. I wonder how it would feel to be pressed up against the wall, to inhale her scent as the life was drained from me. Today is a bad day. Margot sits on the windowsill, legs draped over the side. The tip of her cigarette glows orange with every inhale. You didn't watch tonight, she says, hurt. From my bed, she's a ghostly shadow against the night, black hair rushing down naked shoulders. Today, the pain was too much, and I didn't have it in me to watch her feast. This is the first time I've missed our weekly dinner date since she first asked me to observe them 10 years ago. She said it elevated the flavor of her meals, a dash of acid cutting through the otherwise rich dish. I'm sorry. The apology falls flat. Best not to draw it out. I never asked, but what happens to them? Do they disappear into the ether once they pass your lips? Or do they linger? They linger. Margot takes another drag of her cigarette. I feel them like the ocean feels every fish in its waters. They move inside me, animate me, every memory, every experience. When I first told her of my illness, she said nothing, only summoned sweets from Paris and left them by my door. When my hair thinned and fell out in clumps, she gifted me beautiful Hermes scarves and matching silk shirts to wear. And when all my struggles were proven futile, she drank fine wines with me in silence and held my hand. You've never tried to take my life. Margot laughs with the notes of antiquated crystal. I never wanted to. Why not? Better to die in bed with a succubus than alone in a convenience store. As if reading my mind, Margot slips into my bed beside me. Her body moves against mine like a current, flowing, beckoning. Her hands explore generously. She smells of Sunday church service and everything unholy, of roses and cemeteries and death. I thought you liked men. I breathe into her neck. I like them well enough, she whispers, but I love women. She whispers something else too, words, epitaphs, not for my ears, but to be etched along my flesh, like a curse, like a blessing. I can't find anything sacrilegious in the way we surrender to one another, in the way our breaths meet in silent prayer. I'd like you to, I tell Margot when we finally rest against one another. I cannot think of a better way to spend what little life I have left, even if it leaves me breathless with exhaustion. There's not much left, but it's yours if you want it. She hesitates. It's not immortality, Sherry, just that your energy will be with you for as long as you live. She nods. Her forehead, slick with sweat, presses against my shoulder. I'll always know that you're there. What is death if not satiation? What is death but a feeling where no want exists, no hunger? To rest somewhere safe. I could die for that. And Margot will keep me safe, I'm sure. I'd like for you to do it now if it's all the same. I'm not sure how much longer I can stay awake, and I want to fall asleep with her fingers in my hair. Margot's cool palm cups the side of my face and turns me towards her. Her eyes are a starless sky beneath heavy eyelashes. It'll be just like falling asleep, she whispers, and presses her lips against mine. And she's right. Dying feels a lot like falling asleep when you go willingly. Margot drinks my breath, and with it goes the pain and the fatigue. Another breath, and all of me rushes past her full lips. I become the air in her lungs, the blood running through her veins. I am every beat of her heart, every ache, and every longing. She savors what's left to me like the final sip of a fine wine, or the last drag of a cigarette she brought from France 2 summers ago. With her, I hunger for nothing. And that is it from me.
Wow, absolutely amazing. I freaking loved both of those. Thank you so much for sharing. Let's a little round of applause for A.D Sui
Thank you so much.
on both of those pieces. Yeah, thank you for the Succubus and the Store Clerk and for the Pollinators. Those were both incredible. Um, I also love your own sort of like self disclaimer that it's an A.D Sui story, so there will be discussions of death. Does that feel true for like all of your pieces? Does that like come up all the time, or is that just something you've noticed recently? Or
It's something that I have a little like bingo sheet, and my bingo sheet of stories tends to include like darker themes, death, protagonists that are just failures in some way, shape, or form. So, if you have all those three, you're like, oh, she wrote it. Okay, this tracks. Yeah.
and is that intentional at all, or is it after you finish the story that you're like, oh shit, I've done it again? Like,
I like writing from the margins. I find when uh, a lot of people write protagonists, they want them to be, yes, flawed, but generally kind of upstanding citizens. Um,
mhm.
and I don't really relate to that in any way, shape, or form. I mean, I am a self-proclaimed failed academic, proudly claiming that title. So I want to write for all the self-proclaimed or otherwise failures of the world.
Awesome. Well, I love it. Thank you again for sharing. As is tradition on Story Hour, let's take a breath to really absorb everything that AD shared and to transition into our next reader. Just a big. So, our next reader is Laura Blackwell. Laura Blackwell is a Pushcart nominated writer of speculative fiction. Her stories have appeared in magazines and anthologies, including Nightmare, Pseudopod, Cat's Cast, and Shirley Jackson Award nominee Chiral Mad 5. I will say a quick plug for Cat's Cast. My friend Tarver is an editor or slush, forget Tarver's exact role, but Cat's Cast is very cool. You should check it out. Laura is also copy editor for The Deadlands, speaking of cool, and she and Daniel Marcus co-host the online reading series Story Hour. You can find her on Blue Sky, Instagram, Twitter, and Mastodon's Wandering Shop at pronounced Laura. Laura, all you.
Thank you, Sam. This story is in the current issue of All World Wayfarer, and I believe that it rotates off either tomorrow or the next day. So I'm going to drop a link so that you can find it for at least another day or so. But after that, if you want to give it an eyeball read instead of an eardrum read, then you have to actually pay the $3 on Amazon to get a whole bunch more stories along with it, which is actually not a bad deal, but you know. So this is in All World Wayfarer issue 18, Vernal Equinox 2024. The title is Cryptobiosis in Sugar and Lemon, and it includes blood and cussing. Cryptobiosis in Sugar and Lemon. Jana stared at the half-pint jars taking their own sweet time to cool on her kitchen counter. Come on, she muttered. Sweat ran down into her eyes and stung, but she didn't dare move to wipe it away. Every time she touched anything other than the fruit, the jars, or the canning equipment, she had to wash her red, chafed hands again. Jana was nothing if not conscientious. The popping noises and flattening of the jar lids told her she'd done it right. 10 of the 11 jars sealed properly, pale dices of ripe pear immune to the ravages of mold and bacteria. She'd promised only 10 jars to her daughter's school, so the 11th didn't matter. She bent to examine her handiwork at eye level, appreciating the precision of her knife work and the play of the weak, early afternoon sunlight and the thick golden syrup. Even Polly, with her childish but consistent complaints about the texture of fresh fruit and the effort of chewing, would devour these soft and glistening pears. Then Jana saw the dark fleck in one of the sealed jars. 2 compost pails full of peels and cores and bruised flesh, and still something contaminated the fruit. With the insulated tongs, Jana turned the jar to see what stem or seed had made its way in. But it didn't look like a stem or a seed. It looked more like a chubby brown caterpillar the length of a fingertip. She glared at the little invader as if she could vaporize it with the heat of her irritation. It flexed, sending lethargic waves through the oozy yellow syrup. Then it slid through the viscous goo to present its head as if staring back unfazed. Once she saw it head on, Jana realized it wasn't a caterpillar. It had enough legs, a few extra actually, and with claws on them, but no antennae, no mandibles, and no eyes. The creature facing her down through glass and sugar and lemon juice had a flattish face with a circular mouth. "What the fuck?" Janice said, lingering on the cuss word she avoided using in front of her child. "Is a giant fucking tardigrade doing in the school auction's pears?" In response, the tardigrade sidled up to a tiny cube of pear, telescoped its straw-like mouth into the fruit, and began sucking on it like some kind of miniature vampire. There was no time to turn the pears in the unsealed jar into jam. There was barely enough time for the jars to finish cooling. "I have to get these to Polly's school before it lets out," she told the admittedly cute little monster. "I'll deal with you later." The tardigrade released the pear and flexed the sharp stylets that surrounded its mouth. She wasn't sure if it was a threat, a comment, or even conscious movement. She didn't have time to think about it. Half an hour later, Jana carried a flat of jarred pears into the multi-use room at Sunny Valley Elementary, the good school in the district. The auction organizer, a blonde mom named Stephanie, gestured toward a table without looking away from her iPhone. "Tuesday isn't a problem," she was saying in a "no, I'm sparing you" embarrassment voice. "But understand that getting it to the client on time means comments have to come in by Wednesday noon." Jana set the flat down and carefully ignored the moms who were hanging a banner with the legend, "Fall Auction, Throwback Prom." She didn't want to get sucked into helping and have Polly wonder where she was when school let out. Trying to look busy, she searched tardigrades on her phone. They were pretty interesting. Could live through extreme heat and cold, which explained why the little weirdo made it through the heat canner intact. But she didn't see anything about a species that was visible without a microscope. Finally, Stephanie hung up and made a matte lipstick moue of exasperation. "Those meetings always take longer than they say they will. You can leave that there." "I signed up for 10 jars, but only 9 of them are usable," said Jana, determined to do the right thing. She wasn't going to pass off either the tardigrade jar or the unsealed one to an unsuspecting bidder. "Will you accept an IOU for another?" Stephanie's eyes widened, but her eyebrows didn't rise. "You volunteered to bring in 10 jars of homegrown canned pears. It's in the auction catalog. We can't change it now." "The jars didn't all seal properly," Jana explained. "A few of them aren't safe." "I'm sure they're fine." Jana squared her shoulders. "If they were fine, I'd have brought them. I can't give you a potentially contaminated jar." She tried not to look at Stephanie's immobile eyebrows as she added, "When ingested, botulism toxin can be deadly." Stephanie paused ominously before saying, "We can take an IOU for another jar. Is there anything we can say to make the item more appealing? Organic pears from a master canner? You can say made with organic sugar. The fruit is pesticide-free, but our backyard doesn't have an organic certification. Before Stephanie could say that it was basically the same thing, Jana continued, my master's degree is in nutritional science. Oh, a look of surprise crossed the lower 2/3 of Stephanie's face. How great that the auction is giving you a chance to use it. I consult for home health care companies part-time. Jana stood a little straighter, feeling the sweat trickle down the back of her husband's holy old half-marathon t-shirt. I just don't dress up most days. She hurried out as the bell shrilled. Jana ran to the outdoor lunch tables as the children rampaged out of the classrooms. The first kid she recognized was Stephanie's daughter, Emma, who breezed past with every hair of her sleek ponytail in place and the loops of its grosgrain ribbon perfectly symmetrical. She laughed with another doll-perfect second grader, but turned only slightly toward her friend. Like Stephanie, Emma was a person to be seen and seen with. And from the look she gave a running kindergartner who veered too close, she did not forgive easily once crossed. Riffraff, the angelic-looking girl said scornfully. Her friend nodded, a bobblehead of unconsidered approval. And there was Polly, her chin tucked, her hair a haystack, dark circles under her darting eyes. When she saw Jana, she ran straight into her arms. A kid bumped into Jana's butt as she crouched, but she didn't let go until Polly stopped shaking and loosened her grip. How was school? Jana asked, holding Polly's small, warm hand on the walk to the car. Polly shrugged unconvincingly and stuck out her lower lip. When is Daddy back? Tomorrow during the day. Jana searched Polly's eyes for a clue about what made for a bad day at the good school. I miss him too. She'd asked Craig if there wasn't some way he could come home after the trade show ended, but a VP had scheduled a client dinner that night and a client brunch in the morning. Having the lead software engineer on hand made the company look like it knew what it was doing. Craig's job let them buy a house in this neighborhood, so they both dealt with it. It wasn't as easy for Polly. Can we Skype him tonight? Polly's protruding lips started to tremble. Not tonight, but Ashley's coming over, so you'll have pizza for dinner. Jana unlocked the door and helped Polly up to the booster seat before adding the bribe. Extra cheese if you're good for her. Polly didn't love Ashley, a sweet teenager whose only fault was not being mommy or daddy, but the promise of gooey mozzarella might sway her. Jana let Polly pick a game and then played Uno with her, unsuccessfully fishing for the real story about the school day until the sitter got there. There was no point in hurrying to get ready. Jana wasn't trying to impress anybody, and she was more than okay skipping the wine reception and prom-themed dances. It wasn't until Jana was sticking the pizza money under a fridge magnet that she noticed there was only one jar of pears on the counter. The lid still had the subtle blister shape that told her it hadn't sealed properly. With mounting dread, she turned it over and saw nothing but cubed fruit floating lazily in molten sugar. The jarred tardigrade was missing. Despite her high-heeled sandals in the setting sun, Jana had never driven to Sunny Valley School so fast. She ignored the refreshments and strode to the auction tables. Among the orthodontist brochures and bottles of wine stood a pyramid of jars, the wholesomeness of the pears beaming out past the labels. It took 10 jars to make a pyramid of that size. She hoped for a desperate, irresponsible moment that somehow the sneaky extra was the less visibly contaminated jar, but she hurried to the back of the table and saw the tardigrade right there in the center jar of the bottom row. It was bigger now, the size of her thumb. The damn thing should have been microscopic in the first place. Jana reached out to unstack the jars and apprehend the sinister nubbin, but a volunteer tucked a paper plate with a number and a handle on it into her hand and shooed her toward the round tables of the auction floor. Stephanie gave her an icily patient smile from the auctioneer's podium. The auction was about to start. Jana could still grab the tardigrade's jar and say, whoops, this one's no good. Don't know how that got into the flat. Or maybe she could knock over the table and steal it in the ensuing chaos. But on Monday, Polly would be back in class with Stephanie's daughter and the children of Stephanie's minions. Children who called the other children riffraff, a word most second graders hadn't even heard. It was the very definition of a hostile environment. She gave the tardigrade an anxious glare. The tardigrade flattened its claws on one tubby leg as if saying, wait, just wait. So Jenna found the last empty folding chair in the room at the Livin' La Vida Loca table, which sported an inexplicable sombrero and potted cactus, and sat down between an already drunk mom and a dad who looked like he'd been practicing his I have a feeling about you smile since this song was the prom theme. If Jana's husband were like that, she'd probably be drunk too. If Craig hadn't had that stupid trade show, he would be here in a rented tux, resenting the pettiness on display as much as she did. At least they'd have been able to laugh about it later. While her table mates flapped their auction paddles for gift cards and hotel stays, Jana stewed. She was sure she'd counted 9 jars into that flat. She was meticulous, to a fault, some would say, about many things, but honesty and food safety most of all. The tardigrade must have moved the jar itself, rolling across the counter at speed to hurl itself into the flat. The idea was ridiculous, but no more so than a giant tardigrade showing up in home canning. Jana pulled out her phone and continued her tardigrade search. The articles that called them water bears or moss piglets mostly talked about how cute they were. The more scientific ones explained that these microscopic organisms could survive not only extreme heat and cold, but the vacuum of space. It wasn't clear how they'd do in somebody's stomach. She was pretty sure they wouldn't do great if somebody smashed one with a kitchen utensil. Jana felt a sudden, unexpected surge of protectiveness. "You're not bidding on anything," said the dad next to her with a conspiratorial chuckle. "I've never understood why getting drunk and spending too much for stuff we don't need is a good thing to model for our kids." Jana didn't look up when she said it, and she realized a moment too late that she'd seen these parents in Polly's classroom on back-to-school night. Relentless candor backfiring on her and her family again. She looked up at the mom's confused gape and the dad's knowing smirk. Feeling queasy, she sociably lied. "Not that it isn't fun." Then the auctioneer called out, 10 half-pint jars of homegrown pears, picked at peak ripeness, all organic ingredients made by a registered dietitian, Sunny Valley mom, Jana Lutz. Bids for this old-time treat start at a low $30. Jana went for her auction paddle in a rush, knocking it to the floor. Her dress's chiffon skirt caught under the chair and tore as she went after it. She didn't care. She'd bought the foofy thing secondhand, and she'd donate it with an as-is notice as soon as it was clean again. A hand shot down next to hers and picked up the paddle. "I felt a premonition," the male voice half sang. She emerged from under the table, flushed and disheveled, to stare down smirky, chuckling dad next to her. "Jana, right? You must love your own cooking." He pushed her auction paddle under his plate. "You can't bid on your own," slurred his wife, waggling an unsteady finger. "This isn't the rules." She waved her own paddle in the air. "My grandma used to make jam. It was really good. Had ginger in it." "They're just pears, not jam," said Jana, eagerly chasing down the next possibility. "If you win it, though, I'll take one of them back and trade you a jar of jam for it." Drunk mom didn't seem to hear her, though, or else didn't care. She paid an absurd $90 for the pears, though. Chuckling dad said that maybe someone owed him for that. Jana smiled tightly and kept reading. Tardigrades required moisture to stay mobile. Without it, they shut down into a low-energy stage called cryptobiosis. None of the articles described a tardigrade the size of a roll of antacids, or explained how such a beast could get into a piece of fruit. Sometimes there isn't an explanation for how someone gets where they are and how they survive it. Jana didn't believe in fate, but maybe she and the tardigrade were there to save each other. Jana closed her eyes and imagined herself floating in sweet golden liquid. Unaware of heat or cold, breathing through her skin cuticle, languid and peaceful. Little stubby legs were enough to take her where she needed to go. She latched onto her food with the stylets around her mouth and onto footholds with her sharp claws. She was tiny and infinite. She could endure vacuum. School auction was nothing. Don't worry, Drunk Mom assured her post-auction as she hefted the pears, now loaded less securely onto the flat. The jars rolled around like barrels on the deck of a wave-tossed ship. You don't have to make any new ones. These look great. Juicy. Chuckling Dad winked at Jana as he took the flat from his teetering wife. Jana included both of them in a stony-eyed smile that didn't expose her teeth. She just had to get home with the tardigrade and Polly's family reputation intact. Hang on, she thought. Together, we'll get out of this mess. You, me, and Polly. A dark shape bobbed in one of the jars of pears. Jana took it for agreement. Jana could barely wait to get away from these people, didn't want to even be seen with them, and hated herself the entire time it took to follow them out the door and onto the sidewalk. It was dark out, and she couldn't see the tardigrade, but she envisioned it in her mind's eye, a clawed roly-poly the size of her thumb. Be ready to move fast and be brave. As if in response, one of the lazily rolling jars changed direction. When they passed under a light pole, she whispered aloud, "Now." The off-kilter jar jumped, rolled, and fell to shatter on the sidewalk. What the heck? Drunk Mom yelled. And Jana dove to the concrete, scrabbling for the tardigrade in the shadows. Sharp pain erupted across her knuckles and the heel of her hand. I'll make you a new one, Jana promised as she scraped her undamaged hand through a bowl of syrup. The wavering shadows of Drunk Mom and Chuckling Dad cut into the light, making her fingers more useful than her eyes. A sliver of glass stabbed under her fingernail before her hand brushed against a sticky mass just big enough and just textured enough to be the tardigrade. It didn't move. Please, please, tardigrade. Sometimes I don't know how Polly's going to survive this place, but she has to, and you have to. You know how to bide your time. You endure. I'll put ginger in it this time. For you. Did you drop your keys? Chuckling Dad leaned down, addressing her backside. We could give you a ride. I want to get all this glass off the sidewalk. Jana knew the not lie sounded stupid even by this evening's standards. People walk their dogs here. Dogs will go for the food and hurt themselves on the glass. Oh, dogs, wait a sec. Drunk Mom rifled through her own purse for a long moment, and then the bright beam of a Keyring's LED flashlight made the glass sparkle and the syrup gleam. The light picked up the tardigrade as well, and she shrieked, "Holy shit, what's that?" Just a lawn grub. But it's dead, see? Nothing to be scared of. Chuckling Dad shifted his hold on the flat and snaked a protective arm around his wife, who leaned onto him heavily. Not dead, said Jana, picking it up with her less bloody hand. It molted. This is just dead skin. Her heart leaped. Maybe the tardigrade was still alive. The sprinklers hissed on, and Chuckling Dad hooted, "Go dancing in the rain!" At the same time, Drunk Mom slurred, "No more jelly for the dogs." After giving Jana their address so she could drop off a replacement jar of jam, the couple made their wavering way toward their own car. Wincing, Jana set one palm on the wet concrete and waited. After a few moments, she felt a tickle, the stylets less painful than the glass, as the tardigrade delicately sucked blood from a wound on her hand. She picked up the tardigrade carefully, cradling it in fingers just barely wider than the animal, feeling its slow movements. Its cuticle was softer than she'd expected, though not as warm as Polly's hand. You were brave tonight. I know it's hard for you to take action. Usually you just outlive your problems. But you were brave, and you helped Polly and me. Thank you. The tardigrade stopped suckling, as if listening attentively. I'm going to make pear jam for you, and I'm going to put ginger in it this time. I'll use pint jars so you have more room. I'll teach Polly how to measure the ingredients and label the jars. Family helps each other. And if you outgrow pint jars, I'll make pickles in a quart jar. In the winter, I'll make you limoncello. Does that sound good? The tardigrade snuggled against her, contentedly perhaps, or perhaps it just knew how to endure. In time, Gianna could learn those things too. She cupped the tardigrade close to her sequined bodice. It was so light, so gentle, it didn't disturb the shard of glass throbbing in her nail bed. She drove them home to Polly, slowly, gripping the steering wheel with the fingers of her other hand, lemon juice stinging the cuts in her sticky palm. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. So much fun. I loved that. Um, so many great descriptions of like the auction and drunk mom. I love chuckling dad. It all feels so real. What was the like most real seed for this story? Like what was the bit of experience or the image that this grew out of?
Honestly, it was canning pears.
Okay.
I've driven past the elementary schools when they're having their fundraisers, and once it was at one of them, throwback prom, and I remember thinking, God, parents have to do so many extra things because the schools have no money, right? It's always
Mhm.
another fundraiser of some kind. And
Yeah.
those auctions, especially the themed ones, could be a lot of fun depending on how they're run and who you are and who you're with, or depending on the same things, it could be absolute hell, which
Yeah.
obviously more fun to write about.
Awesome. Well, I loved it. I love the sort of realization that they can help each other. That moment was really beautifully written. So so thank you for sharing. Thank you both for sharing. I'm going to give another little round of applause and another cheers to both of our readers tonight, A.D Sui and Laura Blackwell. Thank you both so much for joining us around our virtual campfire tonight. Um, that's our show for this evening. Next week, our readers are Marissa Lingen and Chloe Smith. I recommend checking storyhour2020.com the day of the reading for any announcements or last minute changes. Storyhour2020.com is also a good place to learn about upcoming authors, not just next week's, but what may be beyond next week. You can watch any programs you may have missed at the Story Hour page on Facebook as well. Laura and AD, thank you again for sharing your stories. Um, and I want to say thank you to Laura and Daniel Marcus for trusting me to help tend this virtual campfire tonight. And thank you all of you listeners, for joining us in spinning the fictive dream. Good night from Story Hour.